All right, hello and welcome to today's webcast, Cost Optimization Strategies for Your AWS Environment, brought to you by Insight Cloud and Data Center Transformation. I'm Rachel Mason, Marketing Manager at Insight, and will be your moderator today. Before we begin, I wanted to cover a few housekeeping items. This webcast is designed to be interactive between you and the presenters. The webcast console you are looking at can be completely customized. You can resize or move any of the windows that you have opened. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can click on the Q&A widget at the bottom and submit your question. All questions from this webcast will be captured, and there will be a Q&A during the last few minutes of the presentation. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties, please visit the webcast help guide by clicking on the question mark icon below the presentation window. The help guide will cover common technical issues. I would now like to turn this presentation over to our presenter, Travis Champion-Fritz. Travis, the floor is yours.
Hey, thanks, Rachel. And thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. We really appreciate it. So I've got a couple members from the AWS team here at Insight, and we wanted to start off today with a little bit of positivity and hopefully make everybody laugh. But on the call, I've got Tim Donovan, who's our National Practice Director for AWS here at Insight, myself, Travis Champion-Fritz, and then one of our amazing AWS Cloud architects, Stephen Fleischecker. And we wanted to just kind of show our pre and post quarantine hair growth here. We were all starting to look like pirates, and so hopefully that makes everybody chuckle a little bit today. Today we're going to go over cloud trends a little bit. We're just going to touch upon the current climate and state of cloud. We're going to dive into a little bit more the specifics of AWS and where it fits in the market. We're also going to touch upon some common challenges that our customers here at Insight, as well as customers in general, deal with when it comes with AWS. We'll go over some of those strategies that we impart to our clients and some strategies that you can use today for cloud optimization. And then we'll dive into some case studies and some current examples of how we've gone about and done that. So many of you are probably here because you're in that process of assessing AWS, you're using AWS or another cloud provider, or you're just maybe thinking about that process of migrating from on-prem or where you're currently at over to AWS. And that's really common currently. We're seeing a lot of growth across the cloud marketplace, with Cisco running a couple surveys recently and just finding that 90% of companies are in the clouds currently. And they're also seeing roughly 60% of workloads across the nation being hosted within the cloud. Another big trend that we're seeing, and probably a good reason a lot of you all are joining us, is we're seeing an adoption of roughly 58% of domestic companies using kind of a hybrid cloud model. So whether that's on-prem and the cloud or two different cloud vendors, most companies are looking to have an agnostic view of cloud and use multiple products. As we move forward into 2021 in the future, there's a lot of questions, but it's really clear we're going to see more and more workloads processed in the cloud versus on-prem data centers. And we're going to just see that global cloud market grow. And since we're talking about AWS, we all know that right now Amazon continues to be the leader, holding roughly about $35 billion of that market share, and continues to grow year over year. The AWS platform, if you weren't aware, is the largest global leader when it comes to cloud platforms. They have the largest global footprint, if you weren't aware with I can go into a little bit more detail, but 73 availability zones, 23 different geographic regions, 205 edge locations, and then additional edge cache locations. Their breadth is really the largest footprint in the world. Additionally, on a regular basis, they're going forward and providing more and more distinct services to their customers. Currently, I think we're sitting at over 18,000 distinct services that they offer within AWS. And that gets added quarter after quarter, and is honestly a little bit tough to keep up with. They also are providing additional development tools year over year that really makes things a lot easier for engineering groups, developers. They're offering serverless features, IoT, machine learning, and AI features on a regular basis. And then, as we know, the real benefit is reliability and durability when it comes to AWS. They were the leader for so long, up until other people joined the marketplace, and we're actually closing in on 15 years now that they've been running. They launched in March of 2006. It's now 2020, and so we're coming close to 15 years, which is why people turn to AWS due to that proven track record year over year. So I'm going to bring in our principal here, Tim Donovan, who's just going to talk about some of the complications that arise when you're dealing with cloud.
Thank you, Travis, and thank you also, Rachel. I'm glad to be here. So cloud is complicated, and they call it a cloud journey for a reason. There's all types of complications, complexities, challenges that everyone's having. It doesn't matter, if you're a beginner, if you're intermediate, advanced, expert, 90% of your workloads are in cloud, or you're just beginning that journey. Everybody faces complications. There's new technology coming. There's a cloud native. There's IoT, as Travis mentioned. But it's iterative. It takes rigor. It takes vigilance. It's iterative. It's the sum of incremental improvements that's going to define your level of maturity in the cloud. And for sure, Insight is here to help you with that. There are folks on this call now. We have 2,000 hours a year doing this for many, many years. Tens of thousands of hours focused on nothing but AWS and public cloud. And for sure, work with your account team. We're here to help, and wherever you are in that cloud journey. One of the largest things that folks run into is that cloud can be expensive. There's always cost associated with it. It's an operating expense, the consumption. You have software assets that run in the cloud. You can bring your own cloud licenses. You can purchase through Marketplace in the case of AWS. And, there's lots of things happening. And it's a little different than from your traditional brick and mortar data center IT infrastructure, where you might have a colo cage, or you might have your own brick and mortar data center where, in your brick and mortar data center, you always have, or your colo, let's say your colo, within your cage, you always want, at least 6 of those floor tiles to be empty because you're going to grow. And maybe you have 12 floor tiles or 18 floor tiles with no infrastructure on it. And you can add racks, you can add servers. The thing about cloud is it's elastic. So what you wouldn't do in your colo is have, an extra 3 racks of servers that are up and running with licenses on them and no workload, because that would be wasteful. And because cloud is elastic, we discovered that same thing, whether it's shadow IT, an engineer with a credit card that spun up some stuff, somebody did a snap mirror, somebody stood up a dev test environment, somebody just went to the default M-type instance and decided that a large sounded good, when in fact, you could have gotten away with a small instance. That's where we get into that being vigilant and having rigor, and where potentially, Insight and this team could help you. We have tools. We have a lot of experience figuring out, hey, these workloads through pre-purchase, through some analysis, we've discovered, hey, there's a huge snap mirror here. There's a big dev test environment that nobody's using that's been spun up, so that you don't have the equivalent of 3 extra racks in your colo cage full of licenses and hardware that you're not using, right? Because there is waste, and we're here to help you optimize that. It's also complicated in the sense that AWS, the way it's structured, you have your org or your master payer, and then you have accounts. And every one of those accounts will have infrastructure running. It'll have storage. It'll have other assets running under that account. But those assets, they could be anywhere. As Travis mentioned, I think it's now 24 actually, regions within AWS, and each one of them has multiple availability zones. And you could have an Amazon instance and running in any of those. And unfortunately, AWS does a fantastic job, and they're very empathetic in designing their solution for users. But unfortunately, we come across things every day, like customers that had a bunch of infrastructure in Singapore that they had forgot about. Like I said, somebody spun up a dev test environment and let it run all weekend, and it was a mirror prod, and by the Monday, there was $90,000 in charges that were completely unnecessary. So, we have tools, we have folks that keep an eye on that. We can set up alerts and alarms and work with you to help you make sure that doesn't happen. And in addition to those accounts with the instances running in every region, there's also 100 services. So you start doing the multiplication of, all right, there's 24 regions, there's 70 availability zones, and there's 100 services, and they could be running anywhere at any time. And it's just hard to keep an eye on how that vast expanse, potentially, of your footprint in AWS. So I was asked by the field, we had a great success with one of our customers on the East Coast, where we had gone in and identified close to 40% reduction in their monthly spending for AWS. And one of the leaders in that region, they came to me and they're like, Tim, I need a slide that says, I can save customers, 40% on their AWS. And I had to explain that, it's not always the case, right? Customers are going to be at different points in that cloud journey, and some will have that maturity, they'll have that rigor, and they'll be doing that themselves. Typically, even in those cases, we can find some meaningful savings. But I did put together this slide that sort of maps out those three areas within the type of savings that we can find for customers using tooling and using some rigor and experience that we have, and it might be underutilized resources, as I mentioned. There's also reserve instances and savings plans. So if you have stable workloads that are going to be there for a year or 3 years, and the type of resources they consume, AWS gives you a fantastic incentive for committing to those. Pre-purchasing those types of instances and workloads, you can save significant, 60% or more for pre-purchase and savings plans options. And then, managing development and updates. Like everything, instances, they get antiquated. We often find folks with, for instance, dedicated hosts, which, there are instances where a dedicated host might work. But more often than not, there's a way to do that with elastic compute and storage, whether it's S3 or EBS. We also have folks that buy big instances with big storage, ephemeral storage, which they could just as easily be serviced by either S3 or EBS. And in addition to saving you money, it'll also give you better resilience. Because if you know that your ephemeral storage, when you shut down that instance, you lose it. Whereas if it's using S3 or EBS and you've mounted that volume, you're able to move that in a way that gives you better continuity and better availability. So these are kind of the 5 pillars. If you look at the right-hand side of the slide, these are the things that we focus on. So, we have many hundreds of very happy customers, and we do this as part of our base service just for folks saying, hey, listen, I want to purchase my AWS through Insight. This is the value add that we provide. So, and it's asset management, it's governance, it's security and compliance, making sure that you're sweating your assets and that your assets are right size for your workloads and your needs. And then, of course, the cost and expense management. We can also help you with your monitoring. We can set up alerts. We also have a managed cloud practice. There's all types of ways that we can help. Now I'll pass it over to Stephen, who, as Travis mentioned, is a fantastic architect, one of the folks that's been here on the team and focused on AWS the longest. So, Stephen, if you want to take it away.
Sure. So what we wanted to do was to give you some idea of what our interactions with our customers looks like. We've been doing this for a number of years. We've been doing it with large, small enterprise customers who have single accounts where they have one for dev, prod, QA. And then we have customers who have hundreds of accounts where they have individual accounts for cost centers, for example. We meet with a large range of customers and counterparts. A single call may be with the IT management, it may be with accounting or VP of IT, because each of them have different questions about their spend or their consumption in AWS. And so in these calls, which occur on a weekly or bi-weekly or monthly basis, based on the size of the account and the complexity, how well it's dialed in, we try to provide them some insight or some access to their data and to be able to generate the reports and respond to their requests for information that they can use to make decisions to ideally optimize their costs, but also to get the most value possible out of their expense within cloud. This next chart that we're looking at is when we meet with our customers on a weekly or monthly basis, one of the first questions is where their spend is. The issue there is usually that there's no surprises within these accounts, that the customers aren't seeing sudden sharp increases, or that if there are increases within their account, that they're planned, that they're expected. So we have some customers that have very steady, even spend. We have other customers that have sudden shifts within certain accounts, like dev and QA accounts, again, within expectation. We have other accounts, for example, that see sudden sharp increases in spend when students return to school or during certain seasons of activity. And then we have in the last category a sudden sharp increase in spend, which resulted from the developers in that company and that line of business owner being given access to the account and the ability to spin up resources. And they spun up resources that were over-provisioned and R8X large site instances. And they saw a sudden massive increase in spend over the weekend and 2% utilization. They left it on and then came back to it. And after they received alerts from us and internally and then dialed it back in. So what we're looking to do is making certain that by meeting with our customers on a regular basis and by giving them tools, in particular, we give them a cloud health management platform as a bundled service in with our cloud optimization or consolidation practice. We give them access to these reports. We give them access to their data so that their line of business owners, so their IT managers, their VPs, their executive, senior, and line management are able to log into this tool on a regular basis and see their spend across all of their accounts, across all of their cost centers. And so the next issue that we typically discuss with our customers, once we understand what the trends are and we get to know our customer accounts, we get to know their trends, we can usually find out whether or not something's an unusual level of spend. But for example, if our customers suddenly see a dramatic increase in projected spend for the end of the month, or we see a decrease that they've been planning for, again, we'll meet with them and we'll make certain that pattern is something that they're expecting. Next chart. The next topic of conversation typically within our customers, again, we're providing them this single pane of glass look at their accounts. So rather than in the AWS Management Console looking at it within a specific region or looking at it within a specific account, we give them the ability to generate these reports across many accounts, 7 accounts to a specific line of business owner, or all of their accounts to an IT manager, a view appropriate to that user and to the access that they should have within their environment. But we're also frequently asked if we can give them detailed breakdowns of their spend, if we can dive into that, try to understand what the cost drivers are for their spend, help them understand what is occurring within their spend in AWS, reduce their total cost of ownership for the environment. So we teach them how to generate these reports. They will come to us and they will frequently ask, is there a way that I can gather this type of information for my environment or for my accounts? We teach them how to generate these custom reports. They can add them to dashboards. They can export them as PDF, export as CSV, and do additional analysis. It's an API-driven interface. And so, for example, customers will come to us and they will ask us, can you explain to us why we're seeing this sudden dramatic expend within our accounts? And so, for example, I can tell you for this account over a 3-month stretch by structuring the query in a certain way, At EC2 increased by 50%. At LightSail, which is their compute, LightSail over the same period was essentially flat. And so then we can dive in using, again, detailed analysis to give them some idea of what's going on with their spend, why it's suddenly increasing, and have that conversation. So, for example, customers will come to us and they'll say, recently a customer came to us and they said, we're using the AWS Contact Center, AWS Connect. We'd like to know for the last 6 to 8 months exactly, how many DID or direct dial numbers we had, how many toll-free numbers we had. That data is all in this system. We have the ability to run these reports over variable periods of time, generate it custom so that it's just looking at a specific service or a specific region, combination of the above. And we were able to give them some insight so that they could make some decisions, plan for their business on that specific service. Another example is a customer came to us and they asked us, we need to rebuild everything that we've been running in Northern Virginia in Ireland. And so we rerun a report for 12 months worth of consumption in Northern Virginia. We could tell them how many data transfer fees they had, compute, storage, based on actual data, on their data. And so what we're doing is we're giving them the ability to access this. More important, they'll come to us during these cadence calls, weekly, biweekly, or they'll send us an email in between saying, is there the ability in this tool to run this type of report, to do this type of analysis so that we can plan? And frequently there is. And it's our goal to be able to help our customers learn how to use this tool within one environment with 111 users logging into it on a regular basis. We'll teach classes on it. We'll answer questions about it. But the main thing is to be able to give them access to the data that otherwise would be hidden across these many different services, across these many different dashboards and tabs and menus, across these different accounts in these different regions. So the second topic that we tend to discuss on these cadence calls is cost optimization, opportunities for cost savings. And so, for example, when a customer came to us a couple of weeks ago and said, beginning of COVID, we need to dramatically reduce our spend within cloud. We need to go from about 65 down to about 35. One of the first things that we did was we looked at their current spend, and then we looked at opportunities for cost optimization. And these reports are run on a daily basis. So I can do a snapshot and I can tell you, or I can do a snapback and I can tell you where you were in March at the beginning of this cost saving exercise, and I can tell you where you are day by day as you go through this process. And I can show for that one customer that at the beginning of it, they were looking at Northern Virginia, they were looking at Oregon, where 90-something% of their total spend in cloud was. And those are the regions that they were pulling down on the dashboard. But when they actually logged in, dialed into it, we were able to show them that they had account executives that were spinning up resources in Singapore, in Tokyo, in Mumbai, places that they wouldn't normally even think to look at. But that 6 months ago, an executive had spun up $750 a month or $4,500 of resources consumed over 6 months, where they weren't looking. And so we help our customers look at this on a regular basis internally within their teams. Line of business owners will be given access to these tools, asked to look at them, asked to keep an eye on them, and then we'll meet regularly and we'll either identify opportunities, present them to them where they can go make these changes. So first thing that we tend to look at are idle resources. This is sort of, as we said, teams had different levels of difficulty or level of effort. Idle resources tend to be points of conversation. Sometimes this is something that actually is performing as it should. Sometimes it's an opportunity for automation or a scheduled shutdown. It's not something we can just hand a list to somebody and say, go shut everything on this list down. But it is something that we can tell them, here are the specific resources that you have, and here's the conversations that you need to be having, and we can help you have them. Where there may be an opportunity to right-size, to shut down, to decommission. And we've been very successful in helping our customers keep their environments dialed in, having those conversations, and providing them the data for it, teaching them how to have that conversation. Another opportunity that we have that frequently is somewhat less difficult, depending, or unused or misprovisioned resources. Typically, when we look at a customer environment, there's about 6 to 8% of their monthly spend that has to do. And again, it varies from customer to customer. Some of them are very sophisticated. Some of them are just looking at this to begin with. But frequently, we look at it, and there's software-defined data center. There's resources that are very easy to spin up, and they're very good at commissioning resources but they aren't necessarily as good at the garbage collection, the decommissioning of all of the attached resources. So they'll spin up an EC2 volume of compute, spin up storage, networking, and attach an IP to it, and then they'll just decommission the compute resource. We'll log in and we'll see resources that haven't been attached for years that are multi-terabyte drives and potentially thousands of dollars. Or we'll see a development environment where, for example, one of them spun up $8,000 worth of storage because their script was very efficient at commissioning but not as efficient at decommissioning. So again, we meet with our customers on this regular basis to try to help them identify where they could make an improvement saving by implementing a retention policy, for example, where every 2 weeks they decommission these resources that aren't attached to anything, that don't have a tag associated with them. We'll help them to identify how to tag their resources. We'll help them to be able to implement these type of governance and security and framework policies. Another area where we frequently find an opportunity for customers is trying to shift compute from on-demand, which is essentially full price, to reserved instance purchases. And again, this is a conversation we have with our customers based on what their business plans are, what they're looking at in terms of horizon, in terms of 1 year and 3 year. We look at these different recommendations, no upfront, partial upfront, first year, third year, or 1 year, 3 year, standard convertible, and we translate. And we answer questions they have about compute savings plans and RIs. They call us, they ask us, we'll stand over their shoulders as we make the purchase if they want a second pair of eyes. We'll help their VP of IT kind of make sense about, based on their current level of consumption and their business plan, whether or not it makes sense for 1 year or 3 years. We'll give them what is a neutral, honest sort of opinion between what they're seeing in the tools and what they're hearing from their AWS rep and what they're hearing from their IT staff, what we think is the best and what the best return on investment is, and based on their cost of capital and a number of other factors. So frequently, we're able to save our customers, once they fully implement these RI recommendations, somewhere between a month to a month and a half, for about 18% of their total bill on an annual basis. Another area that we discuss once we discuss cost optimization opportunities is best practices. This is what we tell customers who've spun up their environments that they don't have MFA within their root account, that we have users logging in who have permissions assigned directly. We have users who are no longer with the organization who are still in their accounts, that they're using the default security groups that came with the AWS environments that had any access. So we're looking at cost, utilization. We're looking at a number of different best practices recommendations. This is similar to what you get in AWS for Trusted Advisor, but we'll help to relate it back to their specific infrastructure and the specific tasks they need to do in order to remediate these tasks. Again, we're providing these reports to the customers. We're helping give them access to their data across all of their different environments in all of these different regions in this single pane of glass. So, for example, customers coming to us, they'll ask for reports for a variety of different topics. For example, once they've made that purchase on the RIs, if they do, or on compute savings plans, one of the questions management will have will be, how much have we saved? Can you put that in? Can you put a number to that? Or if we've thrown a dart, looking at a year in the future on what we expect our use to be in cloud, are we actually using these RIs? So we can tell our customers, you're getting 98% return on your RI investment. And the one server that you're not getting is this one Windows C5X large in Oregon. So that when they come up for renewal after a year, we knew which servers not to renew. We knew which they'd seen a return on investment on, and we were able to help them make that renewal plan. And then as their expense grew from $150,000 to $400,000 a year, and there was that additional headroom, we were able to provide them the data that they needed in order to make an informed decision on where they should make an investment and how they should make it. We look at helping them to do tagging of their resources, tagging and untagging resources. Frequently that's used for reporting on things like project-based reporting, where you tag all the associated resources for a given cost allocation center or for a project. We've helped our customers where they've come to us and said, can you tell us every server that's running Windows, SQL, or Oracle? Can you help us with our licensing and our true-up? This is in addition to our professional services teams who can help with the E3s, with the SAs, with the BYOL. We help our customer generate cost reports. Again, customers have come to us during COVID, for example, and wanted to know, how many users do we currently have under workspaces and what's the trend been over the last 3 months? And again, because we have this historical data, I can tell you exactly how many you had at the beginning of March and on specific days throughout, and provide the chart and give that information to the customer so they can make a decision and where they're seeing value and where they're not. So again, the purpose here is for us to reduce that total cost of ownership, to help our customers generate the reports or make the decisions they need to do to drive their business. And we deal with a lot of different groups within these organizations. We deal with accounting, wants to put together a chargeback model because they have shared resources and need to figure out how to allocate that across the different resources. We can help them identify, how many CPUs they have in these different accounts or how much storage, whatever metrics they want to use for that. And then they need to be able to save that report, and then they can save it as a PDF, and they can do scroll back, and it'll be there for future audit. Or we help our customers who are security, who are looking at, they need to know how many users and groups and permissions they have across these different accounts. So we generate those reports, make it easier or make it more readily available to them vis-a-vis the standard sort of default out-of-the-box reporting tools and access they have to their data within the AWS Management Console. So, for example, this is an example of an RI utilization report, something we would go over weekly with one of our customers who wanted to know whether or not the $800,000 that they had spent on RIs was actually getting fully utilized, and what the return was, and which servers weren't getting used, and which cost centers were actually using the servers that they had allocated. We have compliance reports, which is particularly of interest to some customers who have to be, or either because they are presently or they wish to be at some point compliant, or they just want to have an idea if we needed to be audited, or if we want to know what our security posture is, what's a good standard for us to use. And these reports are generated on a daily basis. We are able to, one of the useful things here is they have security experts who come in and generated these reports. This relates to specific controls that are relevant to the cloud environment, AWS, back down to specific resources in our customers' accounts. So it makes this information relevant, it makes it actionable, it automates the reports, it makes it highly repeatable. It can be a very helpful tool or useful tool to some of our customers who are just looking to get an idea, where do we stand in cloud? These environments have been built out by our developers, or our teams have been running with us, but we'd like a second pair of eyes or another opinion. And rather having to go into the console and doing kind of a Mark 1 eyeball assessment, this tool will gather all that data together, and on a daily basis, it will tell you what your posture is. So there are 35 standards, again, that those benchmarks will run against. That is everything from NIST to PCI. This doesn't give you a PCI attestation of compliance. You're still going to have to do your on-prem audits. You're still going to need to bring in specialists for many of these things in order to get compliance attestation. But it will make it easier to get it will lower the bar, lower the cost for that component, which is specific to AWS. And it will provide a clear, actionable intelligence in order to try to implement those policies within cloud. So bringing this all together, what we wanted to do is we wanted to talk to an example about one customer that we'd worked with. We began working consolidation billing with them in about November of 2018 after doing a proof of concept for them and demonstrating what our capability was, that there were opportunities within their environment for us to save them money on what they were doing, that we would be a good partner for them going forward in their journey in cloud. We worked with them for about a year. We had a long professional history with them. We'd done data center transformations with them. We've done migrations with them. Again, our team is the tip of the spear for our professional services organizations. We have a very wide, we've got a very deep bench. We have an Azure practice, an AWS practice, GCP. But we have experts who, Cisco, Meraki, they understand the full application stack. And so as our customers come to us and they have specific questions about cloud or spend, we can help with them, or they may come to us and say, hey, we need a resource that can do additional work here. Do you know someone? And frequently we do. But this customer, we worked with them for a year inside cloud. We were able to save them a substantial amount of money, about $1.1 million, I think, give or take, in the first year. And that's between RI investments that they had made, between cost optimization that we've been successful in, keeping their environment dialed in, offering some of these services bundled with their consolidated billing for free. At the end of that year, they were looking at entering into an enterprise discount program agreement with AWS. And also they were looking at migrating 2 or 3 of their data centers to cloud, so significantly increasing their overall footprint in AWS. And what made us a good partner for winning that migration contract that eventually was released was that we had helped them to keep their environment dialed in. We were able to partner effectively with AWS to get the migration acceleration program credits after helping them with the migration readiness assessment. We were able to help them build out cost models and what their projected use was, what their current use was in AWS. We were able to give them some confidence about what the rate of growth had been. We knew what their history was. We were able to give them access to that data and also to help provide them a neutral third-party assessment about where we thought their trend was going and what we'd seen within the last months. And so as they've been continuing to increase their footprint within cloud, we've been a partner with them to help them provide them the tools internally to keep this dialed in, to get optimal value for whatever they are spending within cloud. So at this point, I'm going to turn the presentation back over to my team. Tim?
Thanks, Stephen. So we all jumped on here today to learn a little bit more about AWS and some of those cloud optimization strategies. And Stephen went into very deep detail of some of those services we provide, some of the ways that we find areas that we can improve. But just in kind of conclusion, we additionally provide a test drive of those services. We'll do a 3-week proof of concept with you just to showcase with one of your AWS accounts or maybe a certain specific project where we're able to, report and analyze, provide reserved instance purchase recommendations. Maybe there's some security best practices and some compliance checks that we needed to do and update. So we're happy to do a test drive with you. Additionally, at Insight, if you are not aware, we have a large team here that's capable across many different pieces of AWS. So we take a real consultative approach to every one of the clients that works with us on their cloud challenges. So that's not just cost optimization, but maybe that's assessing and strategizing a move to the cloud from something on-prem. Maybe we're innovating, updating current software licenses or workloads that need to move to the newest type. Maybe it's something on the security side where you're looking for a recommendation for a product that specifically is designed for your unique capabilities. We also offer a fully managed cloud service with that. So if that's something you're looking to where you don't want to be in charge or managing that, you want to relinquish that and allow our team of experts to manage the cloud, the security, the updates, all of that, and just provide you with that as a service, we also provide that. And then additionally, we have a great team that works with a lot of our clients to integrate AI or machine learning into web apps or their own infrastructure. That same team also works with companies when it comes to launching IoT products and integrating with those marketplaces. So we have a wide breadth of capabilities here when it comes to AWS and hybrid cloud solutions. We're going to be following up with some resources available to you after this, so feel free to look out to that email. We're going to provide some data sheets, some case studies, an ebook. If you weren't aware, you can reach out to us here at insightcdcc.com and give us a contact or find us on LinkedIn. And so we want to leave you with just some next steps. Everybody's coming from a different standpoint. So look at your current AWS environment and goals. Some of you may have currently a cloud health management platform. Maybe you have a team. Maybe you don't have a team and DevOps is in charge of this. Maybe you're using various spreadsheets or Trello or another service to manage that. Look at what you're doing right now and see some of those challenges or some goals that you have for the future. Talk to your Insight rep. If you don't, we're going to be following up with everyone, and you can reach directly out to us. Set up a meeting with us. We'd love to talk to you about what some of those issues are and how we can help with that. And let's run a POC. That's what we're here for. We want to show that value. We want to demonstrate what we can do. And we'll walk through those findings of what we find and provide the feedback that you need. So I'm going to pause here and let Rachel come in here in case we have any more questions that we need to answer.
I'm not seeing any now. I know there was a question about the tool that Stephen was referring to.
So the tool that we bundle with AWS is one of the industry-leading cloud health management platforms, which is CloudCheckr. We bundle it free of charge in with our consolidated billing offering. It normally costs several percentage of spend on a monthly basis, like 3 to 5%. So if you're spending $100,000 per month in AWS, it costs $3,000 to $5,000, or about $36,000 to $60,000 a year. We just include that. We also include the cost of our regular cadence meetings with our AWS cloud architects and cloud success managers. That's, again, free of charge to our customers. So the net of it is the customers aren't spending more when they're under rebill with us for our cloud optimization service. It's simply part of our package when we invoice our customer, and we're trying to give them access to their data and help them manage their cloud and their spend on AWS.
If you guys have any other questions on the line, feel free to add them in. We'll answer anything you want. We'll give it another minute.
One of the common questions that we get asked by our customers is frequently what type of access we need to their environments. It's only read-only. We're not giving admin access to the environment.
Hey guys, another question that just came in. What is the cost of the service?
Again, it's part of. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that the cost to the customer is frankly everything we've described in this deck in terms of cost optimization is included, as Stephen mentioned. So it's precisely the cost that you have with AWS. We're of course a for-profit business. We're an advanced consulting partner with AWS. We actually are working on our premier partner. Consulting partner, but just because of the volume and the relationship we have with AWS, we are able to, AWS, our profit actually comes not from you, but comes directly from AWS. So we can actually help customers, depending upon where they are in their journey, we can help you negotiate your potentially larger agreements with AWS. We have a lot of experience with that. So. Stephen, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think actually it's the next question they're going to ask is what if Insight isn't the AWS reseller? In that case, we can structure separate engagements. Typically, if you're interested in becoming one of our rebuild partners, we can do a POC, and we can try to provide a demonstration of capability to you. And the conversion rate then is very high. Because again, the value proposition is very clear. It's not costing you anything more from your AWS bill. If you left us, you'd be paying $1 per hour. If you stay with us, you're paying $1 per hour. But we're adding in the cost of cloud checker. We're adding in this consultative service that we provide. So the value proposition is very clear. But if we have customers who, for whatever reason, are already in an EDP agreement with AWS or special pricing agreement or can't move their accounts to us, it is possible to commission with us to have us come in and do this type of review for you as well. And we do have customers who ask for that.
And one more question we got in. How does the AWS discount program work?
AWS discount program. Okay, so there's a number of different opportunities here. AWS provides innovation credits, and they provide migration acceleration program credits. What you're essentially doing there is you're moving content to cloud. You're giving an estimate on what your size of your workload is going to be in cloud. For example, you're saying, we're currently at 200,000 in cloud, and by migrating these 3 data centers, we're going to move to 600,000, and that's our level of commitment. If you're willing to do that, then AWS will look at that and then lock you into a long-term contract, whether that's 3 years or 5 years. That's called an EDP, or an enterprise discount program. And so essentially, you're committing to some combination of spend across all their services. To do that, we also have opportunities for things like migration acceleration program credits, where again, based on the amount of workload that you're moving to AWS, they can provide some additional funding. And to qualify for that, you have to do things like migration readiness assessments, again, putting the data in a specific format. And so we have additional companion groups that will do things like snap starts, which will scan your environment, or block 64. We'll put tools in your environment to help you evaluate what your workloads, your application groups, your dependency mappings, and so forth, and help you build out those cost models where you think you're going to be in cloud. Or we'll help you interface with your AWS counterparts in order to unlock those opportunities for credits from AWS. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, in addition to that, to highlight what Stephen said, there are also those within organization, within account discounts. So as we identify stable workloads, there are significant discounts, probably potentially even eclipse any higher level discounts when it comes to workloads through savings plans and reserve instances.
A couple more questions came in. What minimum monthly AWS spend are you typically targeting to be able to achieve these savings?
I can take a shot at that. We have customers that are very, very small, I mean, literally down to a few thousand or less. We have customers that are hundreds of thousands or even $1 million or more per month. And the reason is that some of these very small accounts become very large accounts. And some of the large ones, will grow or shift or change over time again. We had one customer that went from 60 to 130 back down to 35 again because of business cycle. That's fine. And so we have a range of customers, small, medium business, enterprise. I hope that helps.
And then last question, does your system help consolidate billing of different accounts?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, inherently the system is built on a feature in AWS called AWS Organizations, which, again, you have a number of different accounts, and because of the tiered pricing structure of AWS, if your accounts are within an organization, then you see lower cost overall. You see the opportunities for this synergy. So instead of paying that first 22 cents per gigabyte for the first terabyte of cost 3 times across 3 accounts, you only pay it for one on the one account. And so you see opportunities for paying less. And then as far as we work with our customers to try to help consolidate their accounts, if that's the question you're asking.
All right. That's all the questions. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if your other question was, once these accounts are in an organization, our tool will also give you that single pane of glass, which again helps you to be able to generate these reports across potentially hundreds of accounts. Thank you.
All right. Well, that is all the questions we have. If there's any other questions anyone has, again, we'll be doing a follow-up email, so please feel free to contact us. We'll be happy to help. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Rachel. Take care.
Thank you.